Community Association monthly Board of Directors meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. We have had one very minor agenda change. For those of you who have the agenda, item 4 and 5 have been switched for each other. So the item 5 will precede item 4 at the request of a board member. The first announcement we have is we have a new board member. The board met and selected Darrell Singleton as our newest board member. So welcome, Darrell.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm very happy to be here. I thought it would be at least years before I arrived up here, but the call came early and I answered the call. I'm here with my lovely partner here, Ben, and we purchased a home over on LCA. I've been in Pahoa for about 2 years and love it. Just after another year, and so happy to be a member of this community and hope to make a positive contribution. So, if any of you have any questions, I just want to say that in my career, I am currently retired. My entire career was a collaborative process. I worked as I wasn't an analytical engineer, but I was called an electrical engineer from many, many schools, net zero energy buildings. I always worked with a team of architects and my other co-engineers. It was a wonderful way to make a living. And so I'm glad to be back as part of the collaborative process, hopefully make the line better. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Darrell. There should be something that if the humidity reaches this level, all meetings are canceled. With that said, so we had 2 executive officers offer their resignations. That's resignation from the position of an executive officer, not from the board. So Robert Golden resigned as the secretary, and Rod Kindle resigned as the treasurer, and the board voted to refill those positions and the absent position of vice president. And so Robert Golden now sits on the board as the vice president. Cheryl Kaut is now the treasurer of the LCA. Alice Lindahl is now the secretary of the LCA, and my position was not changed. So the next subject will be what's right now numbered as number 5, which will now become number 4. The board has received, I'm not sure of the count right now, 12 or 13 or 14 emails, mostly just asking questions, saying kind of what's going on and what with the tourism and what's being permitted or not permitted. And we've pretty much stayed away from answering anything with any specificity. But what we did decide was that there's no one who can speak for a person better than himself. And so what we did was, because at least some of those questions, or many of those questions, were specific to the Lures 4 Corporation, we invited the executives of the Lures 4 Corporation to come and give a presentation tonight. So who's, and Rod, you were going to speak?
Yes.
And is there anybody else here going to speak with you? Okay, so Chris Burmeister and Heath Dalton are both here, one of the things that was addressed was that the board wants to really clearly state that we have no axe to grind tonight. We're just simply here to be a medium for a presentation. And it will be up to the Lures 4 folks to say anything that they want or don't want. The board has opted to not ask any questions whatsoever, but obviously the Lures 4 folks can decide whether or not you want to take questions from the membership. So anyway, I'll turn it over to you guys, and you guys can run it for a while.
Okay, it starts with me. I'm Rod Tyndale. I've been on the board for about 2 months. I was asked to respond to several of the letters that were sent in. I have just a few of them. I didn't get all of them. It seemed to be a common thing. One of the most common things was people questioning the ethics of the guy being on the board and having an outside business. And I tell you, I don't see any ethical problem with it at all. The reason there's no problem with this ethically is my business is my business. I didn't represent myself ever to the board. I never voted on an issue that involved tourism, nor has tourism been much of an issue at all. One of the complaints said something about doing business in the United States. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. There's just pre-law, there were 45 businesses doing work here. So somebody else said I had wasn't fair because I had access to LCA records and files. And I want you all to maybe write this down. Per Hawaii revised statute 421J-7, you all have the same right to see all the documents. But it's got to be reasonable hours, to be charged a reasonable cost, and the LCA would be choosing the place where you would see the records. So that complaint is not valid because everyone you have the same right and privilege. I had one where somebody said Chris and Heath resigned because of the proposal. It's a conflict of interest. Why not Rod? I don't see it as a conflict of interest. Not at all. As long as I don't vote having to do with tourism, there's no conflict. Another one said Chris and Heath resigned for ethical problems. I can't speak for them. I don't think there's an ethical problem that concerned Lures 4 or tourism. Again, I've not benefited in any way from my position on a company called Lures 4 or any other companies with any conflict that I can see with this board. And yes, so far not a penny has been earned. That's my part. The rest of it concerns Lures 4 because I'm on the board to make sure there's not a conflict of interest. I can't talk about Lures 4 business, but the gentleman in the back might be able to answer questions.
What is Lures 4?
Lures 4 is an LLC recognized by the state of Hawaii, approved by many departments. It involves 4 members of the community that have 4 properties.
So what's your outside business? You said you have an outside business. What is it?
I don't know if there's a conflict here. One of my partners.
We'll call questions. What do you have?
What's the question?
What is Lures 4? What do you do? What's the purpose?
It's a group of 4 individuals. We created an LLC to allow people to go on our private property to see the eruption with the intent of giving back to the community. We have allocated 5% to go back to LCA for road maintenance. Road maintenance.
Tourists pay you to come in and take a tour.
Women only.
The lower ones.
Yes.
Yes.
And they will be escorted in. They're not driving in private vehicles. They'll be coming in a van. So we've set it up to make it the least intrusive we possibly can in the neighborhood. We have facilities on each property. They won't be taxiing Leilani's, coming here, using the restrooms or anything.
But there's other tour groups that are coming in the same way, bringing buses of people in, right?
Well,
Assume.
that's a pretty much random people via
Okay, so difference here, you're saying that-
companies or, yeah, this is
Okay, because you're saying the van comes in, they're unloading on your private property.
correct.
Okay, so that's different.
Because
Just
we
the
don't
public.
intrude on anybody else's.
What's
property.
happening right now are they're coming in, driving up and down the road. Several, not just 1 or 2, some of them are just stopping and saying, here you go, go knock yourself out. Trespassing on people's property are no longer here, and that's something we're trying to eliminate.
Okay.
By the way, welcome back. I didn't know you're on that.
Yeah.
So you're actively harassing other businesses?
I'm sorry?
You're actively harassing other businesses?
Where did you get that
Well,
from?
you just said you were trying to stop other businesses from letting people walk around on private property. You just said that.
Maybe you want to listen to what I said.
I did listen to what you said.
No, you
Maybe
didn't.
you want to state
I
it
said
more
that
clearly.
other people, well, if you listen, I will.
Okay.
I realize you're anti-tourism, but let's calm down. People are coming in buses, they're letting people off to trespass. That's the key on other people's property.
Random.
They have no permission to be there. They're saying, here you go walk out there.
Do you have proof of that?
Yeah, we see it every single
But do you
day.
have recordings of them telling them they can walk out there and trespass?
I ran them off my
We watched the
property several
vans
times.
So you
drop
do
people
impact
off
that.
and.
If they're on my property, hell yeah, I do.
So
You want me to come to your property?
You hear the van operators tell them that they're free to walk out on the property?
On
They-
my
they
property,
need to get
yeah.
Another load.
Do we have anybody has an intelligent question that's not trying to argue?
Yeah, that's.
I'm sorry.
Well, this is
He's
We've
really-
seen this over and over.
This is the dialogue. This is how it's done. These are the dialogue.
Look,
I
we've
explained-
seen,
Saying I should allow people to trespass my property, but there's a problem because I allow.
Well, I'm
people to buy
saying,
them.
you sort of doing the same thing they're doing, you're doing it in a different way. So I don't understand what the benefit or how it affects, they're still gonna do that, right? There's those businesses that are still gonna run those vans, they're still gonna come in. Now we'll have more vans with your business, whether if there's an issue. I think a lot of people in the community definitely, it is an ethical issue. Like I'd like to talk about, like Rod Kimball for a second. There was a meeting last Tuesday where he stood behind so we could personally lobby some county officials and invite them on the tour. If that's not taking advantage of your position to promote your business, I don't know what is. So I see a lot of unethical and sort of double talk behavior here, is all I'm trying to say. And
How
I
is,
don't see how-
how is inviting somebody on my property unethical, but allowing somebody to trespass, you're saying I should allow somebody to trespass on my property?
I'm just asking you questions, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying, do you have proof that these other tour vans are telling people to trespass on the property?
Yes,
We've
we've
had
seen them
photos.
drop
Okay,
people
so
off.
could you record that and get some proof? Like, I don't believe you, so I need to.
We know the company names.
I was here in February and I saw vans coming in and just unloading people.
Yeah, but did you hear them telling them to
No, it
trespass?
doesn't matter, they just unload them wherever.
Yeah, because-
They unload on my property, I'm
You
like,
said you saw somebody on your property.
no, it doesn't happen.
There was right, Comma Island Tours, a guy in a white Suburban was on your property today. People were walking up on the property.
Comma Island Tours.
Should have been there.
It's like a white Suburban.
That's suburban.
Comma Ina Tours
I think that's what it said, Comma Island Tours.
Pretty sure.
on Coupon. Okay.
So it does happen, I see it happen.
I know that it happens, I'm just asking you. there-
It used to happen a lot on Luana Street. I don't know if it's actually tamed down a lot. I think it actually has over time. But for about the first 3 months, January, February, and March, it was pretty intense. We were seeing people coming in every ship day, random tour buses coming in, they drop off a load, they go in, they get another load, and they come back and pick those other people up. It was all day until the ship took off. So,
You know, I'm just sitting, one of the issues I see here is the fact that the county never established a green site for the public.
right.
So I'm wondering if what these guys are doing is a step forward for the county buildings.
The biggest thing we're trying to do, one is get it under control. There's some companies like Al, that gentleman,
You've never
he's swerved at people trying to hit him on the road as they film him on my property. He's got his van. I ran him off property several times. He told me he's talked to the police. They can't, I ran him off properties numerous times. He's finally has not been back to Capono, but now he's going to the one. And they're literally dropping people off, say, I'll be back in an hour or two, and tell them to head out to Fisher 8, and they go pick up other people, and they come back. Pick up the group they just dropped off, let the other one out. It's all trespassing. No money's come back to the
Every time I
community.
see look angles outside our house, I wonder if they would be there if there was an alternative green site.
The locals that are
That's
coming
what I'm
in,
saying.
that's
You
what I'm
guys may
saying.
have stepped forward with the county buildings.
Bottom line, you have to create a place for them to go. These 4 locations create that place.
Is there anybody who's not seen the proposal that we posted online?
Would you like a copy?
No, I only brought like 10, so you might need to share.
Okay, guys. Is there any other questions? Go ahead, Rich.
Who's not seen it?
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Pam Andrews.
Okay.
Most of the tourists who come here, they want to walk up Fisher 8.
Right.
There's a trail up there, obviously, we've all seen it. How do you plan on keeping them on your property and
This
not on Fisher 8? And how do you plan on keeping them off the roads of Leilani that are private?
Well,
They
here's,
try to drive on roads, and there are roads, and you have to drive up those people on those roads to get to your properties.
right.
So first
So-
question, how do you plan on keeping them?
So
where they
if I have
can-
a van load of people, how do I keep them on my property?
Yeah.
They only have a half an hour and they're packing up and they're out the door. That's it. They don't have time. A lot of the legitimate tour companies don't have time to go hiking out like you see. The legitimate paying tour companies that are that have a reputation to uphold aren't going to do that. The ones that you see, everything that you have seen up until now is inappropriately ran tourism. It's all over the place. It's a free-for-all. This is a lot more structured. They have a tour guide. They're there for a half hour. They're back in the van. They have places to go. They got to go up to the volcano to go have dinner. They just don't have time for all that.
I'm missing the connection on how you keeping the people who are already here, already on the fisher, already all over. How do you think you're just going to get them to come to your
Well,
company?
you have to understand
Just
that.
let me finish,
Okay,
let me
okay.
finish, Chris. How they're going to get to your company, pay you money, and get in your van. When they can just drive down the end of Leilani, park on the road, and we haven't been able to keep them off that, get out and walk up that Fisher Ray, because that's what they want to do.
Right.
Why are they gonna do
I just
that?
had to go deal with some people down at the.
Yeah, why are they going to do your deal instead?
Those people you will never control unless you have a gate of some sort. You can, but here's the other thing is a lot of these people that hike know somebody in Leilani Estate. So a lot of these people are taking money already and letting and showing these people around. There are bed and breakfasts that actually take part in this. They don't control where their people go. The whole neighborhood is theirs, basically. If you're renting from somebody for a short-term vacation rental, guess what? You got the whole neighborhood to yourself. So.
Okay, let me finish up. I object to your logic that, okay, we're going to do something different and we're good because we're good guys. And everybody else is going to be the bad guy and we don't
I'm not
have to
saying
like
everybody's a
that.
bad guy. I'm just saying that there are people that offer parking and other access to this neighborhood that let them go. And that's not what we do.
I still don't agree with your business changing what's happening out there, which many of us object to.
Actually, part of what would help that is we do have an entity that's willing to put in a gate if the community wants it. They will pay for the gate and they will pay to maintain it for the first year before they hand it over
Where's that
to
gate?
Leilani Estates.
Where's that gate going?
Where does the community want it?
Right now, the vote was on Leilani Avenue, and they would help to open the process to get that put in. That's going to be the only way you're going to stop 100% of the people coming in.
I
Even
know
at that,
that,
you're
you
still
know
going to
that,
have people.
everybody here knows that, and that's been tabled because of the complications. So going back to that idea and justifying your business by talking about gate that's not going to happen is just.
You're saying it's not going to happen. We're saying it can't. They will help us get it done. There's people at the state level that are willing to help us get it taken care of. If the community wants it.
The community would like to hear those people. You should let us know.
And it has to have the approval of the board before that can happen.
Okay, I'm done.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's 4 properties. How many vans per day and how many people per van on average?
Right now, we have a maximum of 14 passengers, what we've allowed. And they've been doing 3 days a week, maybe. Since we've been on about 1 week.
Van, as of right now, one van.
2 weeks.
It's a it's a 30-minute increment, and they're in and out.
One van, 3 days a week, 14 people.
Not very much.
You have companies that have agreements with cruise ships that can or have the ability to drive in, and they have the contract with the cruise ship. Those companies have not been coming in. The ones that are been coming in now, they're the ones that are literally, because we went down to the docks one day, they're holding up signs outside saying, this is destruction of the eruption. And those are the people that are driving them in, dropping them off.
They are not cruise ship approved. See, and it's hard to regulate those people unless you fill up a gate. Any other questions? Yes,
I
ma'am.
just have a comment. I just want to say, first of all, I appreciate their transparency, bringing it before everyone, saying what they're doing, and whether we like it or not, tourists are here. And I just support them 100% for their openness and specifically bringing money back into the community. That's all I have to say.
Another question? Here's that look.
Yes, sir.
Did the LL4, where can I read up on that?
The LRS 4?
Yeah.
our website.
Go to lures4.com.
Go to our website.
Lures4.com. Has information on the property and what we're doing.
Anybody?
I do have one question. Is Lurs 4, is your goal to be the exclusive tour company in Leilani? Or are you willing, if someone here in the room that has a property down there, if they wanted to start their own tour company, would you support that?
We can't stop.
Lures 4 is not actually a tour company.
We're just hosting.
We have just the product, is what I would say, and then we're bringing other tour companies in. We do have another, did purchase a van, but it's not part of Lures 4, so we have an option of bringing people in if they want to come in directly with us. So we're trying to get the contracts with other tour companies to come in. Right, I guess the best way to do it is set the standard so that other tour companies want to follow.
Are you trying to do this exclusively in Leilani, Phil, or would you be open to another Leilani resident?
I don't own the property anywhere else.
That's the only place I can do it.
Other people, we own property here. Can we do it?
We can't stop you from doing your own.
There's nothing I can do to stop you from doing it.
Okay, but you're not trying to do the exclusive.
We've never asked for that.
No, the only thing I propose to the board, because they can't control tourism, they're not allowed to give dividends out based off the bylaws and the governing documents, so we get offered to take that off. If somebody approaches them, if they want to send them off, they can, it's something we'd ask. But by no means, we can't control what other people are doing by any means.
Okay, well, the gate idea would mean that only companies that you have a contract with could come in. Is that correct?
No, it could be worked out.
Here's how gates work in a private community. Nobody on this board here can tell any of you who you can and can't have on your property. It's your property, your guests, whether there's a business arrangement that happens off-site or not. You all have the same rights as we do. They can't tell you that you can't have a guest on your property, just like a short-term vacation rental. You had guests for the night. Nobody in this room can tell you, can go to your house and say you can't have this person on your property. It's just so any gated community, you're granting access to your guests. They have access. What we're trying to do is set a standard that if other people follow that 30%, we're trying to do this, and if other companies would be willing to participate, wouldn't it be good if we all got on the same page and did that?
So you're open to anyone starting a business?
We
like
can't.
this?
Hey, we can't stop anybody from doing it.
But you're not trying to be the only.
No.
Okay.
We're just trying to set the standard.
We made.
And if there's a gate up top,
offered it to them,
and you start something, then they would be your invited guests. And hopefully at that point, you would be willing to donate back to the community. So we start the donation, and then hopefully if somebody else, if you decide you want to do something, you do a donation as well. There's several people in here that are doing tourism now, bed and breakfast, and I'm not aware of a single one that's given a dime back to the community. So it'd be nice to see a trend. So.
I'm pretty sure we all know somebody that has brought somebody in from Lane to show that. We know a lot of the companies tell us that numerous people in the community have reached out to them, especially on the lower Malama, and they don't even really have anything to see.
So are you looking for board approval? No. Why are you here?
We gave them a heads up. Okay. And at the end of the day,
The reason they're here is because the board received a lot of questions, and we felt the best people to answer those questions are the principals of the company, rather than it being funneled through the board.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So tourism is a really big problem for people whose homes are located in the eruption zone. We've lost our quiet, we've completely lost our privacy. So from my point of view, bringing in another tourism company is adding to the problem. I'm sorry, but I just don't see that this is a good thing at all.
So do nothing? I mean, is that your do nothing?
Yeah, we work to shut off tourism in Leilani.
You can't actually, if any of these people, anybody in this room has a guest, whether it's a tourist or not, you guys, anybody, they don't have the authority to tell somebody you can't have that guest on your property. It's just, now, if you're blocking driveways or on the roads, blocking, parking at the end of the roads, that's different, okay? If you're out there, out on the lava, walking on somebody else's land, that's different. You're trespassing, you're blocking the roads, you're blocking driveways, that's a no-go. But if you're on your private property, and you don't even have to leave your private property to conduct the tour,
Yeah,
then
I'm not
there's,
quite following why you're stressing this point.
well, I'm stressing the point because people use that road all day long.
So you don't care if it's good or bad for the community, it's legal, so you're gonna do it.
No, aren't these tour companies already coming in and now you're offering them a
Right.
place to go?
A lot of the people that are coming in don't have it, they don't know the other options out there. So they're just doing it.
There are some tour companies we will refuse to work with.
Yes. But if we give people a path and it helps the community and we can regulate it more so than what we're doing now, I think it's a win-win for the community. You can't make everybody happy in this room, ever, period.
Well, especially if you're not living yourself, in the tourist area,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are the 4 properties located?
What for companies?
The 4 properties, is there 4 properties?
Yes.
Three.
I have one on the
Okay. And the other 3 are,
Mine's on the llama,
where on the line?
Thompson, Fisher 10. And we have 2 on the Any other question?
Okay. Well, first of all, I do support Pete and Ron and Chris because we don't have anything to monitor our visitors. And they do it in a way that's very respectful and providing the space for people to come and be safe and enjoy the view of this wonderful creation that we are able to see. So, and I know that they're very mindful of other people who want to do whatever they want to do and mindful of the people who are trespassing. And whenever we can, all of us, the residents of Leilani, to inform the visitors, of the trespassing, private property. It's our Juliana to look after our community, not only them. Okay. So we're all in this together. They're just trying to provide a service to
Noticed.
Otherwise, they're going to be all crazy all over the net.
Disagree with this.
Yeah, and I can say that because I went to witness what they provide. Awesome education in the beginning and the recovery. So to me, I think they offer a solution.
Do the tour vans drive by your house every day?
What was that?
Do the tour vans drive by your house every day?
No, but I understand because I know where you live, and I understand, I really do, and I have compassion.
So you don't care about that,
Let's
but you're willing to
forget
support
the
your
profit
own.
motive here. Very healthy.
Anybody.
So what's coming back to the community right now?
Nothing yet.
Just
Can we see checks?
frustration.
Can we see details? Can we
It
see
all
who
comes back
applied?
to the community.
Who's playing God to determine who gets the benefits, like how does that all work?
No,
Where are the
they're,
applications?
I mean, the only person I've seen playing God is you. You're trying to control everything.
Yeah, very
I mean, if you want to
negative.
have a discussion, I will.
I'm asking you questions.
You make smart
Accusations.
comments and then you say, we're having a
So
conversation.
how much money has been dispersed so far?
No, we don't get paid for the tour companies for 30 days.
Okay, and then how will that be dispersed?
Hey, hang on, guys, let's just keep one conversation at a time going.
Anybody else?
This question.
Do you have a question? You were.
Batman does awesome.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if you guys had a prospective cap on how many buses you will allow in, because I figure you guys are going to want to expand your business, more people are going to be interested in. You're not going to have 30 tour vans in here, okay? Do you have a prospective limit on how much
We
traffic
could
you will
do 4 buses per time slot.
Use the word.
Sorry, that's the vans. We're not doing buses.
Right.
We actually did have a company approach us one year, the big bus, and we refused. We said absolutely not.
So you do have a prospective cap, and how are you going to determine it?
Well, we only basically sell time slots, essentially. We sell the time slot, we put a cap on it, we sell the time slot, once it's booked, it's booked. We're not piling on as much as we can for that day. So,
That's what I want to know.
I mean, there is a little bit of work involved here, so it's not as, hey, that is easy as just turning them loose. You have to tell what happened, what the neighborhood was like prior, you have to basically educate them on what happened and how it's affected everybody's life here, to give them the knowledge so they have the respect for us. Okay, if we don't tell them anything, they don't know anything, and they're out there urinating in the streets because they just are clueless.
Guys, a couple of the questions on the emails asked about the payback structure, that the actual percentages, or how you're going to determine the payback. Is that something you'd be comfortable addressing?
We have 5% earmarked for LCA, but it's strictly road maintenance, nothing else. It can't be used to purchase exercise equipment. It has to be for road maintenance.
5% of gross sales?
Of net.
Oh, 5% of net profit?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for, initially, the first project we voted on as a group to try and take on was get the people into the Kapuka to get that road opened up. And then once that's opened up, then we will look at either other projects or individual status of people that have suffered losses from the eruption. Okay.
Are you aware of how expensive the opening of Kapuka would be? We've heard between $50,000 and $100,000.
How many quotes have you actually seen? We've heard a lot. We're getting a couple of physical quotes.
No, I'm just saying that's the range that have been.
From my understanding, nobody's actually seen a quote. Everybody talks about, well, it could be 60, it could be 100, it could be 20.
Well, I'm just saying it's quite a lot of money.
Yes, so we have.
So it wouldn't be.
No, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we do have other people that are willing to match funds to help get it done quicker.
So I'm just trying to keep. So if you made $1 million net profit, the community would get $50,000.
Individuals or projects.
No, the road. The 5% of net would mean that if you guys make $1 million net, not gross, that the community would get $50,000.
Leilani
LCA
community.
for roads,
LCA,
yes.
I'm sorry, LCA, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that you may have influence on county and state government.
Influence, no. We have people we've talked to that have put us in touch with people that can help match funds.
Make things happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, for the gate, yes, there's,
Oh,
we have a party that could help
Just
with
for
that.
the gate. But what I'm just thinking is, if you're saying you have influence in government, then maybe if the community came up with specific sites for viewing, that maybe you could advocate for that.
Yeah, we have no influence, but we can present the people we know, but no influence. So then-
But it would be an agreement if that's the case, where these sites are, have access to.
The problem is that the county has wanted this problem to figure itself out, and that hasn't happened. You can't pick and choose sites. I mean, well, you could, but who owns that property? I mean, we own the properties we own. If there's something better out there that somebody has,
Hey guys, so what's happening is we're getting into a general discussion about tourism options, legality, on and on and on. The real specificity of tonight's meeting was for these guys to be able to present the framework of their company. I think they did an absolutely fine job of it. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate that. Again, I'll restate what was said before. LERZ4.com is their website. It's all spelled out on the website very carefully. And it sounds to me, and I hope I'm saying the right thing, you guys are open to questions. And so just simply be in touch with them as individuals and get any questions answered. Is that a fair representation? Okay. So anyway, why don't we close this matter right now? If anybody has further discussion with those folks, why don't they take it up directly with them and try to derive answers. But our goal tonight as the board was to provide open dialogue for the community, and regardless of where you sit on an issue, open dialogue is an important part of that process. So anyway, hopefully we accomplished that tonight. Again, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so our new item 5, previously item 4, was Our attorney talked to us about two really important things that a board of directors has to do properly. One of them has to do with their fiduciary responsibility. So one of the primary functions of a board of directors is to administer the monies of an organization. You guys all pay your dues every year expecting to get certain services for it. And it's up to us as the board to make decisions that spend that money wisely. So given that, we have signed up with our attorney to receive some training in fiduciary responsibility, to know where our boundaries lie, decisions we can and can't make without the membership, and all of that categorized as fiduciary. A lot of that is regulated by the state in Hawaii 421J. Some of it's regulated in our bylaws. But there's a third component of being on a board, and it has to do with ethics, and it's not able to be legislated. There's no repercussions for violating ethics. Contrary to some of the belief in Leilani Estates in particular, the board of directors has absolutely no mechanism available to them at all to remove a board member from the board. Nowhere, anywhere in state law nor in our bylaws can this group of people turn to one of us and say, you have to leave. It's never been done, and it never can be done. There is no mechanism to do that. Everything that has happened so far is people have chosen to resign.
Or they've been asked. There's a difference.
Asking someone expressing an honest statement saying that I wish you would leave the board is simply it's just simply an opinion. We've had some people on the board who were asked that question and said no, and we've had some people on the board who were asked that question and they said yes. Other people simply just decided to resign completely on their own for personal or other reasons. But with that said, there is one gray area that gets into the fiduciary law and ethics, and they start to commingle with each other. And what it's called is called conflict of interest. And conflict of interest creates a very unique status within a board. We're all protected by an insurance policy. It is called directors and officers. D&O is what it's commonly known as. And so what D&O insurance protects us against is our own stupidity. And I don't know how else to say it more bluntly. If we were to make a very foolish decision, I'll give an example. If we were to hire a contractor to do a job and we didn't sufficiently check out the credentials of that contractor, and we wrote that contractor a check and he skipped town with your money, we would be protected by insurance for having made that foolish decision. What we're not protected by is by individual actions or undisclosed relationships. What we would not be protected in that case would be is if that contractor was my brother-in-law, and when he skipped town, he took me with him on a nice vacation. I would then not only be fiduciarily responsible personally to Leilani Estates, but I would also have broken criminal laws at that point. So it's very common for a board of directors, whether it be a private corporation, a non-profit as in things like the Red Cross or Food Basket, or a homeowners association, to adopt a policy called the conflict of interest policy. And there's an expectation that all the board members adhere to that policy. The policy that we're going to propose that we adopt tonight is a fairly boilerplate conflict of interest policy which exists in thousands, maybe tens of thousands of organizations around the world. And what it says is that there's a code of ethics. The code of ethics, I'm not going to read every word of this, this will all be published. It goes on for several pages. So, it says that we'll make sure that the community is well-maintained, financially secure, and always operated in the best interest of the members. That we will use our efforts to promote the goals of the organization. We will not ever use our position or authority on the board for any sole personal benefit or for the benefit of others not consistent with the goals and policies. That we will always respect the majority decisions of the board, regardless of how we as board members may feel about that decision, and that we will keep all confidential and privileged board information confidential. There's very little information that we keep confidential. It has to do with attorney-client privilege items. It has to do with personnel items, anything with an employee that we keep that confidential. And it has to do with intra-board discussions, like the thing that Heath just talked about. That is actually confidential board information that is discussed in executive session. Then what it says is it says that board member can be removed, but only by the membership. Only by the membership. What the bylaws say, for those of you who aren't aware of it, the bylaws say that a meeting be called for the specific purpose of removing a board member, that it be properly advertised with the correct lead time, which I should notice, I think it's 10 days. Do we have to give official notice to the entire organization? And then there's a vote taken of the people who show up for that meeting, and 2/3 of the people in the room at that moment can remove a board member, or in fact can remove the entire board. So there is a mechanism to do it. In my research, looking back through the history of Leilani Estates, it's never happened. It's never ever once been invoked. But it is clearly called out in Article 4, Section 10 of the bylaws of the LCA. The bylaws of the LCA are always posted at leilaniestates.org. You can pull them up at any given moment. Then this document talks specifically about conflict of interest. And here's what it says. A conflict of interest exists when a board member, an officer, an employee, or the agent of the LCA has directly or indirectly, through business, investment, or family, an ownership, investment, income, or any other interest in any entity whose purpose, function, and goals are not the express functions and goals of the LCA. And then it says, under procedures, and again, I'm skipping over some things. This is all available to you. It's kind of redundant. It says, in the procedures, there is a duty to disclose. So in other words, it has to be proactively disclosed by the board member to the balance of the board and the community when that conflict of interest is known to exist. And a board member may recuse themselves from voting on any matter that involves their interest. That gets a little ticklish, because if you have interest in a particular aspect, if you owned a lawn mowing company, and you wanted to see that there was a lot of money spent on lawn mowing, you might choose to reduce the budget for some other thing, so that particular, so it becomes ticklish, but ultimately the board's supposed to hash that out amongst themselves. But suffice to say, our attorney, who by the way is Lincoln Ishida, put this together specifically for the LCA. It talks about the LCA as a specific organization. And the board decided to present this tonight to us. The board is presenting it to ourselves for adoption and agreement by the board. So I was going to say, do you have any questions? The questions wouldn't be about a concept of conflict of interest. It would be about this document in particular, and you guys don't have it. So, but if you have a question that might, here, if anybody wants to see it, here it is. If you want to take it and read it right now. So, and I have a couple more. I apologize for not making more copies. That was my oversight. I make a motion to the Board of Directors of the Leilani Community Association that we adopt this LCA policy entitled Board Member Ethics Guidelines and Conflict of Interest Policy. Any discussion?
Have discussion.
Go ahead.
I have problems with some of the verbiage in the document. I have no intention to sign the document, and I'll resign my position from the board before I leave.
Okay.
If you'll accept my resignation, I can resign.
I don't quite understand. Are you tendering a resignation?
Yes,
Okay.
if it's accepted.
Oh,
Am I
sure.
accepting it?
Well, Rod, honestly stated, we don't have a right to either accept or not accept the resignation. The resignation tendered is an action purely taken by you,
Okay.
and it doesn't need any sanction from the board.
Yes, I do resign my position.
Okay. Honestly stated, I'm at a little bit of a not quite sure how to go forward moment. Yeah.
Can we ask why?
No. So, okay, so, go ahead, Rob.
What Rod just did is really not directly linked what you're talking about. You're talking about a policy,
Right.
and Rod has interjected his resignation in the middle of that discussion.
Okay, but
And all I'm saying is, we...
But he has a right to do that.
I'm not saying he doesn't. All I'm saying, all I'm saying is that we were doing this now to acquaint the community that actually we took an executive session to adopt this.
what we're doing now is we are letting the community know that this will be the policy of the
And we had voted on
LCA
this.
moving forward.
Right, we voted on this in executive session. And the community...
We voted to accept it as written. Yes, that's correct. What we're voting on tonight is to individually enact it as a signed document. Okay, yeah. Subtle difference. But, okay, so Rod, that's your final decision?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you should unseat yourself from the board.
I just have a question. Does that mean then the other oath is defunct, or does that also go along with, it's so hard to keep
There
up
was
with
no
all the
oath. I
rules.
don't know what you mean by oath. I've never heard that term ever before.
Okay, maybe that's the wrong word. Oh, I've got to watch my words.
That's okay.
You're right.
Agreement to serve.
Agreement to serve.
To serve.
Yeah, we had an ethics policy that we discussed.
So this
and-
is different, or added to?
Added to.
Added to.
Okay, so, any more discussion on the adoption and formal signing of this? Absolutely.
Second, that we need for a vote.
Okay, and so we'll vote by a show of hands for the adoption of the ethics guidelines and conflict of interest policy. Ayes? Okay, so it passes unanimously and becomes policy of the Leilani Community Association that we will be bound by these ethics guidelines and conflict of interest policy. It will be posted on the minutes of tonight's meeting in its entirety for all of you to see. Okay,
So is this in lieu of or in addition to the other two documents?
it's in addition to, that question was just asked a moment ago, but yeah, it's in addition to. And two documents?
There's another one was made July of 2015.
You mean the ethics?
Not ethics, it was
There were 10 points.
so there was a thing that you put together that basically was the same as one was already there, but it was different. Now there's kind of three things floating around.
No, the first one was a draft version, and then we voted on the final version. I think you're mixed there was some objection to some wording in the first one by the board, and we reworded one sentence in particular.
One sentence was about the CCNI.
Yes, yes, about the CCNI, exactly that. Yeah, so no, there were two. Okay, moving along. We've already done the LERS 4, so...
May I ask a question?
Oh, of course.
Does this mean that any board member now cannot have a business in Leilani Estates?
No.
Is that
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, no. A conflict of interest, you know what, I'm not going to go into it. What you need to do is to go home and Google conflict of interest and read what it says. Because owning a business and a conflict of interest are two very different things. Thanks. The board created a disaster funding and road task force, and we seated Robin Stetson as its chair. It's been doing incredible work, and Robin's going to give a report on it.
I'm going to stand over here. Yeah, so we're making progress. We sent out the letters to the government representatives about a month ago. And we received responses from 5 key persons. What's significant about these first responses is these came back to us without any follow-up phone call. We wanted to see who would reach out first. And we have met with these 5 people now. The first was to contact us was Russell Ruderman, our Hawaii senator. We met with Russell in person right here in the activity center. Then next, Brian Schatz's office gave us a call. We were not speaking with Brian, but we did a conference call. They patched in a staff member from Washington, D.C. and one from Honolulu. And again, we sat in here and we spoke with them. Then we met with Diane Lay. Many of you will know that Diane is the director of the research and development branch of the planning department. Her department is the one that's managing the federal funding that's coming to Puna. We heard early on from Joy San Buenaventura, our representative, but we couldn't arrange a meeting with her until this coming Tuesday, so that meeting is coming up. And then we've also had a call from Tulsi Gabbard's office. We're still trying to get in touch to set up an appointment with one of her staff members. The federal people, you know, they kind of put you through a screening process, you might say. But the fact that we were immediately set up with a phone conference is pretty good. So, but overall, I would say these meetings felt a lot like what they were, a first meeting, an introduction. We did receive a few suggestions, but no solutions. It's just, we're not deep enough in our discussion with them yet to bring that about. So I definitely think we will be doing a second round with everyone. What we did, you know, for our part, we described our conditions here in Leilani, much as we did in the letter. We described our lack of support from the county. We did make a point of reporting in every single meeting about our 6 residents who could not yet get to their homes. We want that to be out there. Let's see. And then for their part, you know, they had a little bit of information to give us. Everyone seemed to be pretty concerned that we were going through the proper channels with the county. Now, we had researched the county quite a bit, but since it was almost as if they felt like if we went through the correct channels, this was going to solve our funding problem. So we did, to honor their wishes and, you know, their expectations, we did line up that appointment with Diane Lay. she arrived with a team of 3, so there were 4 people from the R&D department, and we, discussed everything at length. However, our meeting confirmed that there are no channels yet existing for immediate funding for Leilani Estates. So this is a big problem. It's a big hole, and many of us, not just Leilani, but the other subdivisions that have been impacted, like Vacation Land and others, we're going to make a lot of noise about this. We're planning to. Anyway, we are planning to go back for a second round. I think we've learned quite a lot in the last month, and we'll be able to achieve more depth in our negotiation. And we'll also be reaching out to some of the people that didn't respond to our letter. So those are the next steps. And we'll tune in next meeting to let you know what's happening.
Could I just add a couple of
Oh,
things?
sure.
So we've had no response whatsoever from the mayor's office or any representative of the mayor's office. Absolutely no response at all. And the message we delivered very strongly to Diane Lay was that there's numbers being bandied about of 10 million and 20 million and 60 million and 122 million. And we told them that a community like ours, that $1 million could be transformative to a community like ours. And so we didn't understand why those kind of monies couldn't be coming quickly, since it's supposed to be disaster relief. And the disaster was 15 months ago. So, and we made a very strong point of that to everybody who would listen.
Also, yesterday at the county council, there was a meeting of the finance committee, and several of us took the opportunity, not just Leilani, but from Vacation Land people and others, to address the council, the entire council, and explain to them that nothing is happening, nobody's getting any emergency funding, and to please help us. And so it's creating, we're creating waves. We can see the waves starting, and they're starting to intersect. So I think it's good. Yeah.
What were the funds that Nicolette was able to tap into?
Oh, pardon me?
What were the funds that Nicolette was able to tap into?
Nicolette?
To get their road in.
She's applied, but they have not been granted.
Yeah, no.
Privately done by the residents.
No monies have been granted.
No money has been granted.
There's an application.
Yes.
Is there a plan or a laid out document of what this money is going to go for? I mean,
No.
Everybody knows we need something,
No.
but has anything been laid out?
No, the county's plan right now is to do a study that will last until the end of this year to create possible places that the monies could go. And then they talk about a possible implementation of that plan throughout the year 2020. And but the short answer is no. There's no plan whatsoever.
So we wait for the county to do this, not us to do this.
And
We're
I
just
think
looking.
she's asking, what have we put forward?
Our
yeah.
plan or the
Yeah,
county's
I mean,
plan?
we're talking about we need money, but we need to show them this is what we need it for.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
actually not yet. Not in talking to the legislators that we've talked with. The legislators are much more concerned about the lack of process than the particular needs. The fact that the monies have not. If any of you can watch Big Island Video News, watch the county council's, I'll use the word grilling of Diane Lay and other county officials, essentially saying to them, why have monies not gotten to the people who need it? Why is this money so caught up in the process rather than providing real disaster relief?
And supposedly the county has paid their overtime payers to all their employees, but it
Yeah,
doesn't seem
there
to
are
get
many
it out.
puzzle pieces like that. Again, hang on a second, Swan. The point that I think that we made, is that we don't want a bucket of money. We just want enough to make our community whole again. That's all we want. And in the grand scheme of things, that's a shockingly small amount of money compared to the total dollars. One of the things that offended us, I think I can say this, in one of the meetings we had with Diane Lay was, she said to us, well, we've only gotten $22 million so far. And we said, we've never used the word only and 22 million in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, but I have a comment. Can I speak?
Well, why don't you hold those, because we're going to have time.
Actually, this is very important, and I would like to share
Well,
some information.
there's actually a time for that.
Can I have 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but it is regarding
Yeah.
the roads and the
And we absolutely want to hear it, but just sit tight. Okay, so anything else for Robin in particular?
Just a quick question. Do we have even the slightest indication as to why the mayor's office won't respond at all? I mean, we sit in the...
You want to go outside in the parking lot, I'll tell you.
It's a parking lot question.
Mick, if you meet me after the meeting in the parking lot, I'll tell you what I think. But I'm not going to say it sitting up here.
And there are no beers involved.
Robert says.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Andy and for Robin. It's because to take off what Andrew said, I would think if we had a plan that we need money for X, Y, and Z, rather than say we need money, but if we specify what these monies are for, it's more powerful than you say, Mommy, give me money. You know?
Well,
that's definitely part of the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what you would, it would probably be, and I'm not at all dismissing if you attended one of the meetings of the task force, you'd see the whole thing. Robin's not telling it the entire big picture right now.
Yeah. I did have lists of the number of miles of streets that need repairs and the estimated cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
actually,
so there is some.
Oh, yeah, lots, there's lots
A
more.
lot of work happening.
Yeah.
And Jay put it together.
Okay, so there is.
That's
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Pages and pages and pages of research. Yeah, you bet. Okay, anybody else, anything for, well, okay, so thank you, Rob.
So much.
By the way, I will say that I get phone calls and emails from Robin morning, afternoon, and night, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but I want you to all know the time, effort, and energy that she's putting into this. So she really deserves our thanks as a community.
Andy?
Yes, sir.
So I want to say regarding this issue, in my experience, so Robin has been down to the council and Andy's been down to the council. They sent his letters out, but you yourself would call. You call the county. You call the mayor's office.
May I expand on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So Robert's exactly right, but we need actually more than that. We need people to write good letters, asking anything you want.
Yeah.
They can go all the way from where's the money to outlining very specific needs. But numbers matter.
Yes.
And then we need people who are comfortable with testifying before the council. We watched an issue get testified by 22 people, and the council paid a lot of attention to it and passed it right there on the spot. It wasn't our issue, it was another issue. But we saw the impact of multiple testifiers. So if you have the time, the energy, the disposition, and you don't need to be an articulate speaker, you can speak from your heart, say anything you want, you will be listened to, but we need to let the powers that be know that Leilani Estates deserves attention as a disaster relief community. Okay, so now we are going to open for member statements. So we are going to ask you to impose upon yourself a 3-minute limit. We don't want to have to reel anybody in, so please just make a note of the clock and try to keep it to 3 minutes. We are going to ask that nobody speak twice until everybody who wants to speak once has spoken once. We are also going to ask you that if somebody who speaks ahead of you says substantively exactly the same or virtually identically the same thing that you want to say, simply stand up and say that you agree with what such and such a person said. We also are asking you, please give your name so that Alice can have it for the recording purposes of the minutes of the meeting, and also tell us your, just because it's really nice for us to get to know each other, tell us your address or the street you live on. Anyway, we'd like to open it now for member comments with no particular order. Let's start right at the back there.
Hello, I apologize for coming in late. I just flew into Ireland, but I am Pamela Ali. I'm the fourth guy with Bruce 4, and I just wanted to stand up and introduce myself. Hello.
Thank you, Pamela.
I had a comment and a couple of questions.
Can you identify yourself, please?
My name is Phil Denny. I live on Pumacati Street. I noticed that I'm the next item on the agenda. The comment, the previous board hired Michael Garbarino to sue the county. They were named as plaintiff or as defendant, and it seems that there's very little wonder why they're not real happy with the Leilani Community Association. The questions are for Cheryl Kapp, our new treasurer. Congratulations, I guess.
Condolences.
Where's our treasurer's report?
It's right here. I just got my first glimpse at it. I barely got my feet wet. So
Are we going to have a report of income and expenses?
yes, we will.
Will we have an audit?
We're working on it.
As requested according to the bylaws?
No, actually not.
There's
No, that's not
actually two
correct.
different ways you can go, and I'll let Andy talk to that because he's the one who did the research.
We are working with the John Carbonaro CPA in Hilo, and we're in the process of meetings going forward to determine that we do, in fact, impeccably meet the requirements of the state of California and of our own bylaws.
How are we going to know that?
How are you going to know that?
Yes.
I guess you'd have to research it on your own.
No, I mean, there's going to be a comprehensive...
The fact that it'll take place?
Yes.
Let me follow what one of the Blur's guys said, which is absolutely correct. Rod said it, which is absolutely correct. All of the records of the Leilani Community Association are open to every member of the Leilani Community Association. The only things that are sealed are attorney-client privilege items, personnel items, and a couple of other categories that fortunately we haven't ever had to seal. But all of the finances, all of the emails of the board, all of the letters that, I'm sorry, one thing we can't reveal is the letters that come into our association. So if someone sends us a letter, we're not going to publish that person's letter, but without their permission. But suffice to, so the short answer is yes.
When are we going to have a treasurer?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Hold on. The bylaws require a treasurer's report once a year at the annual meeting. And we definitely will fulfill that. But we intend to fulfill it more quickly than that.
Well, I would like to speak. I'm Smiley
Yeah.
Rose.
Smiley, you want to stand or you want to stay seated?
No. First of all, there's a survey that Diane Lay and Bob Agris and the research and development and the recovery team have spent tons of money. It is once again a survey or a meeting or first there were talk stories. Leilani was never invited to do a talk story. Vacation Land was never invited to do a talk story. You did, right? Okay, well that's good to know. So they know our needs. Then there were talk actions. So then recently they've spent lots and lots of money, as you might see on the Big Island Video News with Ashley speaking to Diane Lay, that they had formulated a survey. But this survey is going to reach everybody on the whole Big Island, which of course we as Puna residents know where the disaster hit and who needs to be listened to and spoken to in regards to federal funding for this disaster. We have fought like hell. I do live on Kula Street, but I also have property that hasn't been inundated at Green Mountain. That's my home, and I intend to go back there. So actually, your previous lawyer was the one who initiated some goals in order to organize and get power so that the county had to hear us. And that was to gather all of the associations, and which of course Jay and Robert, as Leilani people, we wanted to get people from the board of Leilani Association and the presidents of Vacation Land, Kapoho. We had people that were of the Pohiki Road Kapukas. So basically we formed a coalition, and they started to ask us, Diane Lay and the administration, we met with the mayor, and initially it was fighting for recovery of 132, which as we all know is happening right now. So there are things that are happening. There is progress, but that was not easy to obtain. Even our representative, who should have been fighting like hell for it, looked me in the face and said, sorry, Smiley, you need to think of a different alternative route because it's not going to get funded. So basically, the organizing of all of the associations and the groups and meeting together has made a difference. To keep an eye on the money that is happening. Now, in speaking with some FEMA and HIEMA people this week, and that $120 million, if you'll look on Ashley Kirkowitz's resolution that went to the county council this week,
I'm just to tell you.
Specifically,
That's 3
will
minutes.
not
So
go to Lava Zone 1.
how about another 30 seconds?
How about a minute? Because there's a few things that I think this whole community really needs to hear. So, you as the president, I would really hope that you would want to be a part of Inualo or Puna, because they are listening to us as a whole from the Puna community, and as a whole, that's where things are being, we're keeping an eye on the funding. The CDBG, there's grant money for projects, and yes, it's great that Robin has started working on the recovery of Kahukai Boulevard. I personally, I'm intending to get a cost estimate, which this week they weren't able to, but a contracting company that is licensed has done the homework, and I don't know how the $50,000 to $100,000 on the Kahukai project was estimated. I know Jay has been working really diligently on it.
Smiley, that's another minute. So let me just answer real quickly. Hang on just a minute. So the board of directors has met with the Vacation Land Board of Directors. We have met with Diane Lay. We have met with other county officials, and we have met with
and Diane Lay has given you no answers.
Okay, but
because she hasn't given any of us answers.
Okay, but thank you for the statement. Appreciate that. Okay, does anybody?
I'd like to say one more thing, that the Kahukai residents, the 6 people on Kahukai, yes, they do have homes that they need to get back to, but opening up that 4,000 feet, there are 53 properties that it would access. So that is 53 properties, those people would have access to go back to their homes. 12 homes might have been there that were permitted. I don't know how many homes were unpermitted. Maybe 4 of those 12 don't want to move back. Maybe the 8 other people do. So there's several other people on that Kahukai stretch
Smiley, I'm going to have
that
to
would
cut
have
you off.
access.
It just isn't reasonable to offer people 3 minutes and then for you to go on for double. It's just.
Well, I hope I could help you guys.
Okay.
Please, everybody,
No,
fill out the survey.
we appreciate what you're saying.
Fill
But
out the survey because it's for us Puna people to be heard. And they're saying that that's how they're going to listen to us.
okay. Does anybody else have a Mark? Go ahead.
Mark Howard here. Just want to talk a little bit about several issues. First one is
Is the speed hump gonna go through here?
That's actually on the agenda for tonight.
Okay,
Number 12.
Yeah.
all right. Then, the other one is, I received a letter, I don't know if any of you received a letter from, you were in violation on your property? No?
Violation in regard to what?
Second unit on your premises.
Oh, yes, I did receive that letter, and it was addressed by the board, and we talked about it in executive session.
So, at this moment, it's not the same anymore.
Okay, yeah, yes, it has been addressed.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else have anything they want to add this evening? David?
Richard Skidmore. Just to follow up to Mr. Denny's question, I hope I misunderstood what your response was. In 7 years that I've been here, every month there was a treasurer's report that gave the income and expenses. And since the board changed this year, there's never been one.
Right.
And I thought I heard you say it's not required till the end of the year.
Right.
I would like to see in terms of transparency
I agree.
that the monthlies
Yeah.
not
So you're on now.
Let's see, the board changed treasurers, and
Few days.
just 3 days ago. And part of the board's feeling was that there needed to be more proactive work done by a treasurer. And so that was addressed by the transition.
Thank you.
So we do have a balance sheet here that Tim gave us, and if you want to read that over now.
It's
What,
a little bit too much on
Yeah,
here to
yeah,
sit
it's
there
just literally a
and
list of
read
numbers.
items.
Well, that's what was read usually before, is the balance sheets were just read off.
Well, parts of it.
Yeah.
Parts of it, not even all of
Our thought is that what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to publish it every month. And we'll simply publish it on the LeilaniEstates.org website. And it will be there for anyone to scrutinize at whatever level of scrutiny they want to look at. And if you, for those of you who know accounting terms, if you want to drill down on a particular account, then you'll be provided with the information about that particular expenditure. There are some expenditures which, again, will be sealed expenditures. And for example, one of them will have to do with lawsuits, and they will be sealed by the terms of the lawsuit, not by action taken by the board. Anybody else? Hang on a second.
I just want to say thirdly, also first on my list was the treasurer's report. Thank you very much. I think we should have that every month.
Yeah.
And how are the committees coming? There was supposed to be gate committee, CC&R committee.
Yeah, the gate committee was formed. We've had one volunteer from within the LCA. We've had a couple from outside of the LCA, but we can't populate a committee with non-LCA members. So right now it's up to the community to populate the committee. The board can't move. We chartered the committee, and we put out a couple of times looking for members of that committee. Twice at this meeting we've asked about it, and so yes, the tourism committee has not been chartered yet, and we decided to wait until tonight's meeting because of some of the brouhaha about tourism. We decided to charter that committee based upon some of the sentiments of the community tonight.
Well, then specifically, since I didn't hear that that was already formed, I was surprised that I didn't hear back because I applied to be on both the gate committee and the CC&Rs, and I never heard back. Other than you received it. I heard that.
Well,
That's what I got.
We had a minor problem too, and the server we were using for all of our emails got the plug pulled on it. And I lost all of my emails for everything, including who had volunteered for the gate committee. I remember a couple of them, I don't remember the rest. Most of them were section 1, they weren't section 2. So anybody who's interested in being on the gate committee, send me an email. I remember I already had one volunteer for the tourism committee, but the tourism committee hasn't been chartered yet.
So with that said,
Interested in either.
with that said, if you're interested in sitting on either of those committees,
Send me a new email.
we absolutely want to hear from you.
What about the CCNR?
CCNR committee was disbanded.
It's not gonna happen?
Correct.
We now have 2 members.
So you're happy with the CCRs as they're written, is that correct?
It isn't for us to be happy or unhappy, it's for us to enforce them. We don't make judgments about the CCNR. The community makes judgments about the CCNRs, not the board of directors.
We assigned both Daryl and myself to take charge of the CCNRs and chart the path forward for how we deal with them. And we will be doing that, but we just got the instruction a couple days ago. So we don't have a result.
So this is not a formal committee, it's just a couple of board members doing it?
Well, it's, we have access to all the files and all the information, and we are charting the future. See, everything was dropped when the model went off, and there hadn't been any follow-ups during all that time. So we are looking at individual cases to figure out, how to approach it. And that's all I can tell you now.
There's a series of 3 letters that go out on CCNRs, aptly named letter 1, letter 2, and letter 3. And a bunch of letter 1s had gone out many months ago, and then the lava began to flow and the changes began to happen, and it sat in that limbo for many months, and we're just now digging that information out and restarting that process the way it should be moving forward at basically 30-day intervals. Those letters are supposed to follow each other, but many of them were written 11 months ago.
Excuse me, Alice, I just want to clarify, you're referring to the individual CCNR violations that already exist. You're not talking about the CCNR regulations.
No, there's no new regulations in discussion.
I just want to make
But
that clear.
the whole board divided it up and got to know, where we stood. And I think 2 people can take all the information we gathered and keep working on it. It isn't like we just tossed it, and aren't paying attention.
I'd like to address though what Phil was getting at. And what Phil was really asking about was writing policies and procedures that clarify some of the CCRs. Is that what you were really asking about?
Partially.
Okay.
Partially, as you well know.
And some of them we are going to, yes.
The CCNRs as written are vague and ambiguous.
Some of them are, yes.
They are, and they need to be changed. There's a mechanism in the CCNRs to do that.
Yes, but
And
it's
my
almost
understanding was
impossible.
is that there will be a board committee
No.
formally assigned
It
with
was
charter.
tabled.
No, it's tabled.
It was tabled.
The decision was made, for those of you who don't know, changing the CCNRs was set up in such a way that it's virtually impossible to do. And the CCNRs have remained substantively unchanged with one minor court ruling on one aspect of the CCNRs for 51 years. Not a single change in them for 51 years.
It's actually 2 now. The height requirement was changed by.
The height requirement was not changed specific to us. It was changed specific to all CCNRs in the state of Hawaii.
Well, it resulted in a change in our CCNR.
Okay, but I am aware of it. It was not a Leilani specific change. So, the changing of the CCNRs can only be undertaken by the membership. And that membership would, I won't quote chapter and verse, but it's a very high bar to reach, and possibly an impossible bar to reach. 75% of every owner, regardless of where they are in the world. We have 20% of our owners that don't even have good addresses on file with us. So it'd be a tough one to reach. You next. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay, so on the CCRs, if we really want to
Deborah,
change
your
them.
name, would you announce who you are? Identify yourself?
Deborah Preston, and I live on Pomaikai. If we want to change CCNRs, it has to be a community effort. It has to be an ad hoc community committee. But will the LCA support that committee by getting us the addresses and the information we need to contact those 80% that we have addresses on?
I wouldn't see why we wouldn't.
But that's all public record.
Yeah, it's also
You
all
can go
public
out to
record.
the county and
Yeah.
all that's public record.
Yeah, that's true. It's all stuff that you can pull off the county
I've
record.
got that information right here.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Robin?
On the committee, segregate committee,
This is Robin Stetson. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I understand that, you've announced it at a couple of meetings, but how else do people know about these committees? Are they on the website?
Yes.
And could you possibly post some physical copies in the window here and on the bulletin board?
Sure.
And I just think that it would be to our great advantage if more people knew about them. But I don't see that hardly anybody knows about them right now.
It's been published in the minutes several times.
Yeah.
It's out on the website.
So we will put out, we'll make it bold, we send out MailChimp, it goes out to roughly 400 residents here. And so 400 people will know that we need to populate these committees.
And also 400 people get the minutes every time.
Yes.
Yeah, Robert created an email list. Maybe many of you have already signed up for it. If you haven't, please do. And Robert sends out every board action, every document that's appropriate to send to the membership goes out to that email list. And at this point in time, it's going to 400.
400.
Yeah. And so I think a lot more people know about it than you.
Yeah, I guess I stopped getting mine for some reason.
So email me and I'll check that.
Yeah. The other point I wanted to ask is, how could Smiley get more talking time in front of the board?
A great question. Anybody can get more talking time in front of the board by requesting an agenda item and giving us a time allotment for it. So absolutely. The only thing that we will ask is that an agenda item be LCA specific. We can't solve the problems of all of Puna or all of Hawaii. I mean, I'm stating the obvious. I apologize for that. The point being is that if it's something relevant to our community, absolutely we'll put any item on the agenda that any of you want to put onto the agenda. Yeah. So you just have to request that.
And how do you request?
You just send an email to the board or email to the office. Yeah. And again, Alice is the secretary. What you got, Ann?
Ann Calver on Kapono. It's been a year now since the lava stopped going into the channel, and we've now gotten back into our homes, and now we see what the new normal is here. And our three areas are the areas that are covered, that no longer can have access. There are the people that are right up against this, that the tourists and people going in are impacted on constantly. And then there are the people that have a normal life. We don't see it. We don't deal with it. It's not our problem. So when we go to vote for these areas that are being impacted, like, I don't want a gate. I'm fine. I have no impact. But these people are, and they are the voice. I mean, if we go out to vote, now people are going to go, no, I don't want a gate. I'm fine. Everything's fine. How do we address these areas and directly connect with these areas? Because it's not a general membership type of thing. Also, the liability of that fissure. I'm surprised we haven't had the county come down and take someone off. What is our liability having a fissure, a geographical, whatever, thing that people are interested in?
Yeah, we can't address the liability in the county. Your guess is as good as mine.
Mayor Kimmel discussed that.
There we go.
Oh,
however, I think the point that Ann makes is a superb point. as all of you know, or most of you know, there was a lot of feelings about the folks who wanted to use the bottom of Malama Street to cut a road to get back to a half a dozen homes that had been cut off by the lava. It was a raging controversy. A shocking amount of money was spent on legal fees trying to settle it. That'll all come out in the bookkeeping, by the way. And it was going nowhere, absolutely nowhere at all. So what this board decided to do was to bring the stakeholders together and in this very room, and we asked everybody on Malama that we could make contact with who had an opinion about it and was directly affected by it, and the people who wanted to get back to their homes and were about to be directly affected by it. And we brought them all together at a table, and then we announced to them, we're going to leave, and you guys are going to work it out, because we know that we can't work it out for you. Anything we impose on you will feel onerous to some of you. And so we left for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours, and they came and got us and said, we got it all worked out. So what that did was, it gave weight to the people who were the most affected by it. We can't change the bylaws. We can't say if you live close to the lava, you get 2 votes, and if you live far away from the lava, you only get a half a vote. We can't do that. But I think that the wise and judicious use of compassion can accomplish a lot. And so I applaud what you're saying, that it's really easy for me, way up at the top of Kahukai Street, to say, oh, tour vans aren't a problem, or whatever else, because I'm absolutely unaffected by it, entirely unaffected by it. And so I think that this, more than any other time in our community, is a time for genuine compassion for the people who are affected by the people who are not affected. And I think that has to weigh heavily in our decisions.
We also can't, I mean, that is a state. As much as your property under lava is a state, you now have a house that's right up to the fissure. We can't change that. You know, that's up to you whether you choose to live there or not or whatever. What can we do? Can we put a security guard at the top of Leilani and check every van that comes in and out? I remember someone being furious at an orange van, and it turned out it was the medical van coming in to pick up senior citizens, you know. I mean, it was like, calm down, everyone, you know, so.
Well, thanks. Anybody? State your name and where you live.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Kalia. I live on Malama and Paleo Street up at the top. I have to disagree with you, Anne, because I feel like this has affected all of us. I don't know about any of you all, but I have people in foreclosure all around me. And that's
Hold on, what do you disagree about?
I just disagree that those of us in the other areas aren't affected by this. We're really affected. This neighborhood is not so good anymore. It's not as good as it used to be. We're not kind to each other anymore. I mean, people on the board have accused me personally of lying and stuff. And I just want to let you know that I'm a really good person. I actually take really good care of my neighborhood. I live on the top street. I have a bunch of houses in foreclosure around me. I just bought the one next door so nobody would squat in it. I don't have enough money to do that. I'm a tour guide. I've never brought people down here ever, and I want you to know that there's not a lot of tourism right now. There's not a lot of tourism in Hawaii right now. I don't have a job, barely. I have a job with Kapoho Pine, but I can't get work with them, barely. So I just want you to all know that we all have been affected by this. There's other houses that have been squatted up there. I got the house together. It took us 6 months to redo a house up on Pueo Street. I did it the way that I thought we should do it, and that is I went in with my brother, who also is in your neighborhood now. He's one of your members now. He's right up on Leilani. With my brother and my boyfriend, and for 6 months we worked really hard on this house, just with our extra time, not getting paid for it. For an 80-year-old woman who lived up there who had to leave because she got squatted on by King David. Everybody probably knows it, King David. He was a horrible drug addict squatter. He's out of here. He's in prison in America now. He's not here anymore. We just finished that house. We got people from we got Section 8 people in there, a grandma and her grandson. And just the day that the Section 8 people okayed us, then the next day somebody came right in the house next door and firebombed 2 cars in the driveway. just to let us know who's in charge. We were like, oh my God, and the police came. They were like, I'm so sorry. But he looked at the house that I took care of this. He arrested King David and he said, Leah, good job, man. That's what neighbors need to do. The house looks beautiful. I wouldn't have recognized it. It was a lot of work. And if I would have known how much work it was, probably wouldn't have done it. But it's done. And now we have a nice new neighbor. But literally every day I'm watching people drive up and down the roads, and we all know. We don't know who they are. And they're thieves and they're drug addicts, and we've all had to deal with it. And I hope it changes in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment? Okay, so we'll close member statements. Thank you very much, all of you, for your statements. I always learn something. So. Item 8 was the statement of a resolution of a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit filed against the LCA by Phil Denny. Through mutual agreement, the Leilani Community Association and our attorney and Mr. Denny and his attorney went into mediation, and we were able to settle the lawsuit. The board voted, we had to come out of that mediation for the board and take, Cheryl and I represented the LCA in the mediation. We then had to bring the terms of the mediation back to the board, and the board voted unanimously to accept the terms of the mediation. At this point in time, we've been advised by our attorney, whose name is Michelle Luke, on Honolulu. She was assigned to us by our D&O policy, that we are not yet able to reveal the terms of the settlement because they have not been signed off on by the courts. As soon as they're signed off on by the courts, there'll be public information, and we will publish for the entire membership the terms of the settlement. But because it's not recorded yet, it technically hasn't happened yet, and so as soon as the recording happens, it will all be made public. The actual process of mediation was sealed and will not be made public, but the results will. And we should have that all available to you by the next board meeting to let you know exactly what the terms of the settlement are and what the financial burden to the LCA that was created by it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In case anyone's confused, Michelle Luke is the attorney for the insurance company who covers us. And so she was in charge of everything during that, not any other attorney.
Okay. Number 9, Cheryl asked to put it on the agenda, so Cheryl, why don't you take it?
This one's the liens, okay. Well, we went through the policies, Andy and I did, policies that were in one of the binders in there that the board of directors had passed or said they passed in the past. And I went through all the minutes trying to establish where these were actually voted on or not. And I found a few that were rather important that looked like they were actually never even voted on. And in addition to that, we have one called the Seriously Delinquent Account Policy, which was charging members a $200 lien fee for processing liens if they were overdue a certain amount on their accounts.
3 years and $500.
That was it, yeah. And we talked to the attorney. The attorney says that this constitutes usury and that we can't do it legally.
Well, hold on, let me be real clear. So, in the past, the board of directors was using an attorney to file those liens. His name was Ray Hasagawa. And he was charging the LCA apparently $200 per lien to file those liens. So we were passing on a $200 fee, which is absolutely legal. At some point, it appears that we stopped using Ray Hasagawa to file those liens and began to do it in-house ourselves, but continued to charge the $200 lien filing fee. We're in the process now of discovering where that and when that transition took place. And we are under the advisement of the attorney as to how to handle what happened at that point of transition. So we need to, it's being looked at by the attorney, but the reason Cheryl's bringing it up is because it's of concern to us. So, I'm sorry.
Well, so what I wanted to do was, I think for now, we need to vote on this policy as a board as to whether we're keeping it or we're getting rid of it. And my motion is going to be that we vote to rescind this policy until we figure out what we really should be doing. So I make a
But it's going
motion.
to cost something to bring a lien against somebody's property.
So you're not gonna do liens?
You want to collect that money?
No, we'd
no,
still be
oh, no,
doing liens.
oh,
This
no.
is just that $200 fee that
It has
was
to do with
being
the
added
filing
to the
fee.
accounts, yeah.
Right now, again, in the interest of absolute transparency, we're filing the liens in-house. We can do them 20 at a time. Sometimes we have as many as 20 to file. And there's a one-time $41 filing fee of any number of liens from 1 to 20. And so our understanding from our attorney, and this is a little bit premature, but the truth will set you free. It appears that the state of Hawaii permits us to charge exactly what a lien filing costs us. So if it costs us $2, we can charge a $2 lien filing fee. Or if it costs us $41, we can charge a $41 lien filing fee. Or we can decide to re-employ an attorney in the process, and whatever that attorney charges us, we can pass that on to a member. But right now, I'll second it based upon the fact that there's too much ambiguity in the policy right now. But to clarify, Ross, your question, yes, liens absolutely will be filed going forward.
So anyway, let's take.
Second.
We've got 2 seconds.
Okay, that's good.
So let's take a vote. All in favor of rescinding this policy? Aye. Unanimous.
Okay. Item 10 is the CC&R violations policies. As stated earlier, the board doesn't have any wiggle room on the CC&Rs. The CC&Rs are. They just are. There's no room for saying, oh, we like this one and don't like that one, and anything like that. However, the CC&Rs in the past, the enforcement has been difficult because the CC&Rs have had no teeth. We can file a lien, but at the end of the day, that was the only avenue that was available to the board of directors for the enforcement of CC&Rs. In our research, we have found that it's not at all unusual for a community to create a fine structure that has to do with the non-adherence to CC&Rs. So all that we're saying tonight is that we are in fact opening the discussion to research legal options for the more stringent and faster enforcement of CC&Rs through the process of monetary fines. And we don't have a lot more than that right now.
And so on this one, I think we need to discuss it more first.
Yeah.
I just realized that, and I meant to bring this up earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't. On the CC&Rs, are we reviewing those for compliance to current law, like 205, I believe it's 205.4.5, says that on ag land, the use takes precedence over covenants?
No, we haven't reviewed that.
Yeah, you might want to before.
Why don't you send an email to the board and we'll put it before our attorney. Absolutely. Okay, item 11. Actually, Rod Kindle and I did an on-site inspection of all of the infrastructure of Leilani Estates, being concerned about both cosmetic degradation, sidewalks are filthy and some other things. A lot of it was caused by the eruption and just not paying attention to things. But there's a more serious concern. The serious concern is that the pavilion, the bolts that hold the pavilion down to the concrete are very, very badly rusted. So the board made a decision to hire a structural engineer, a licensed structural engineer, to come in and do an inspection of the pavilion as to safety. We have hired a firm in Hilo, and they're going to charge us $1,500 to do that inspection. That the contract has already been rendered, and we hope to have a report back from them in about 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from when we sign the contract. So we will be making the results of that study public, and moving forward from that, we will make a determination based upon that engineer study as to the current safety of the pavilion. We've also found out that previous boards have opted to not carry insurance on the pavilion. It hasn't been carried for many years, so there's no property insurance on the pavilion, and we're also reviewing that, but we're going to obviously need the engineer's report before we can talk to an insurance company about the appropriateness of insuring the pavilion. That has nothing to do with liability. The liability is not specific to a structure, it's to the organization. So we have liability on every aspect of LCA's operation. It would be on the physical damage to the pavilion. And it also appears that if any of that damage were linked to the eruption, that we would not have had insurance to cover us for that. That's all. Any questions on that? And then the last is speed bumps. Item 12, Alice is going to run.
We made it to the end. The speed bumps that from the first company that we asked to help us with the Miley speed bumps gave us a quote of $2,200 per bump, and they're actually supposed to be called pumps. That means they go all the way across the road, and they're not as high as bumps, just so you know. And that would have involved re-asphalting the surface of the road to make it the high spot, and then to paint it over. So this would be, major road construction people in there putting that asphalt on. Mark can correct me if I say anything wrong about construction. And then we looked in, we did a little survey of the people in Miley, and we all drove around and looked at speed humps in other places. And on private roads especially, but also at the airport, there are plastic and rubber-based speed humps. And if you look at them on Amazon, there's a huge selection. But Mark Ellis, one of our residents, went down and had a long talk with people at Home Depot, and they sell these. And he determined that they had the best price for the same thing that he could see anywhere else. And the idea with those is that they have bolts which project down into the asphalt and hold on, and it's something that can be done with tools by a handy person or a team of handy people. And my husband has volunteered to be the chairman of the team of handy people to get them in a safe manner. And we decided as a community on Miley that we will not ask for 8 speed humps, but only 5. We figured out where they would go, and we thought that would slow everybody down well enough.
What did they cost?
They cost, I'm glad you asked that question. We just happen to have a little sheet here. If anybody wants, you can come pick one of these up.
There's a bunch of them.
To do 5 bumps, just for the equipment and the bolts, ordering everything through Home Depot, they have to have it mailed in or shipped in, would cost $6,337.84, and that would be compared to 5 times 2,200, which would be about 12. $11,500, something like that. So this would cost half of what the road construction type bump would be. And in addition, they also include, and Mark has it in his thing, the signs that say speed bump ahead and, slow to, because we have a speed of 25 miles per hour on our street, and many people drive much faster than that. And so that's our target, is to have 25 mile per hour speed. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they talk about the longevity of this?
Well, I'm sure it depends on the traffic, but the exact same speed bumps that Mark zeroed in on are the ones they have at the airport to slow people down when they're getting ready to turn into the pickup loading zones and stuff like that. And there's another set of them going into the parking lot. And I would think those would get a whole lot more traffic than ours would. But eventually they would wear out. But these are guaranteed to have the boat full and all that sort of stuff. And so that's as far as we have gotten. And I know that the other end of Miley and Cotton Pie is also interested that they haven't, queried their residents yet to see if they want.
So what the situation is, a previous board, and I have lost track of which iteration, there's been a lot of boards recently, a previous board voted as a compassionate gesture to the folks on South Miley to install speed bumps at LCA expense, which would be an exception to the normal speed bump policy, which requires owners paying for it. That vote has already taken place. At this point, at this juncture, this board is bound by the vote of the previous board. The complication that we've run into is there was a projection thrown out, and Mark, I don't think you'll mind me saying this, that you had thought that the speed bumps would be about $400, and the quotes we're getting back are way higher than that, like 5 times that. So we don't know what number to use now at this point. So I think the thought was, and again, I'm projecting, I wasn't privy to that conversation, and there were no minutes about it that we can find. What we're thinking is, the thought was that there might be 7 or 8 or 9 speed bumps at $400 each, and that in turn might cost $3,000 or something in that ballpark. So now now the best we can find in the research we've done is a number that's in the 6,000 range, and seriously upward from that. Bringing in asphalt companies was in the 20s and 30s of thousands of dollars. So we don't. So I'd love input from the community at this point.
Just a quick one. Thinking on the reasoning on the prior board was that if that's the only way you're going to know if all the people on Miley want those speed bumps.
Yeah,
is
we
if they're
did
going to
that.
pay for
We
them.
already did.
Okay.
No, the previous board voted to pay for those speed bumps in this particular case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, it was no. Residents pay them, that way we know they want them.
Absolutely, no.
I wouldn't want them on my street.
Rich, you're absolutely right. The policy, which is very clearly written out, addresses that it will be paid for by the people who will be affected by it. However, there was a vote of an interim board, none of whom still sit on this board, saying we're going to make an exception in the case of South Miley and the board's going to pay for it. So,
I'm just saying the important part is all those residents need to agree. They got to grab hands and figure out what you want.
yeah, well, the board voted, and Alice polled every single person on Miley Street, and every single person, was that safe?
Yes,
Yeah,
every homeowner signed.
Every homeowner signed the petition.
You didn't ask the renters to sign it.
Yeah. But it wasn't with any expense, just sign a petition.
The other argument that several people in our group brought up was that if we have plastic/rubber humps, they can be taken up when the repaving happens. And if we get the asphalt ones that are built into the road, those would be destroyed and we'd have to remake them.
And Mark, you have something?
Yeah, the $400 was for 3 tons of asphalt per speed hump.
Right.
Yeah.
$400 per speed hump.
Right.
Yeah.
That's only the asphalt. If you use
Material.
only
okay.
the asphalt. There's 3 tons of asphalt.
Okay. Just simply dumped on the ground. Just simply delivered.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to build it. Somebody's got to build it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that explains a lot.
So that type of speed humps you're gonna get, what's the dimension on it?
It's all written down on here. Can I just give you this sheet?
This is
Again,
what
it's
I'm
a-
asking is, if you're gonna get the one exactly like the Hilo Airport,
Well, it was
Hilo Airport has multiple.
is wider than our street, but
6 feet by 20.
I can't say. Didn't include that.
Because if it's gonna be narrower than 6 by 20, that's useless. I'm gonna tell
Well, Mark measured our street and made sure that by 2 pieces that would go completely across the street. They're each 10 feet long. And so
Okay.
that's in his report.
But the specifics of the speed bump, hump, whatever term we want to use, is really not the issue. The issue is a board passed it without any upper limit. There was no mention of, yes, we'll do it if it costs less than this or more than this. And now we've gotten the quote for it. And so,
Are you sort of asking feedback from the community?
always.
So, do you feel, I think what you're saying is this an appropriate expenditure of money? Or should we think of, maybe people mileage fee want to contribute toward this? Is that just suggesting that?
I don't know, what do you think?
Well, we'd be withdrawing our offer from the people in Miami.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, we'd be withdrawing the offer to have 3 speed bumps, which is how, they were approached by it. I think a lot of them would pay, but maybe not all. People on our street, don't have that in their budget.
So, which is basically, I think asking is that, do you feel it's okay for the LCA to spend $6,000 on South Miami? I think it's more like.
Well, but this is not our membership.
I know, but just
our
trying to
membership
sense.
is many hundreds more.
No,
than
it's just it's just sort of taking a test of the waters.
It's what?
It's taking a test of the waters.
Well, it's quite unsafe the way it is now for people who are pulling out of their driveways. Because people who are blasting along are not looking to see who's coming out. And it's especially difficult for the people on the 2 ends. People coming off of Miley, swinging around and can't see them coming. And a woman and her 3 children actually moved away who were in Rob Ochoa's house now because they were so scared about their kids being hit. That's been several years ago.
So I see we have 3 options. We have an option to move ahead. We have an option to completely rescind the vote and say that vote is withdrawn, and or we have some middle ground of funding from the affected peoples, but I do tend to agree with Alice that the board extended it as a gesture of individual uniqueness of Miley Street because of the heavy use of that street by folks coming down from the unpaved streets and using that as the ingress and egress to their properties. They do experience other than probably Leilani Avenue, they probably experience more traffic on that street than any other by a disproportionate amount because of the use by people from other streets.
Andrew, I'm just curious, and I'm not, I'm not against the forest because I've been on other streets, but wouldn't this set a precedent? I mean, if we...
No, in fact, that was addressed very carefully. Apparently...
Wait, I'm not finished.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wouldn't people on, say, on our street then, say, well, now we have got the traffic here that's used to Mile Street before, we want speed bumps.
The board doesn't have to act on precedent. The board can act on each individual request on its own merits.
I realize that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that this could sort of cascade into a whole lot of other requests.
Yeah,
because in effect we're all, and I realize that our traffic was, I walk every morning, so I see the traffic, but aren't we just diverting, potentially diverting traffic to other streets?
Possibly. Possibly.
They'll avoid mining, yeah.
But you're talking about this side, right? Because I was thinking the other side, because that's the one. Yeah, south
No, there are
side.
many more.
I would think more, I was
accessible
thinking that the speeding
on
was
the
happening
south
on that side of my way, but you're not doing speed bumps on that side of my
No.
way.
The problem is not the people who live on the street, it's the people who don't live on the street.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a disproportionate use of folks who come down from the unpaved portion of Malama, so they don't have to drive out on an unpaved street. And so they choose to use the paved street. And the sentiment is, and I don't think we've ever, in fact I know we've never quantified it, that leads to speeding on that street as well, that people are kind of in a hurry. I have no, that's only an anecdotal evidence, that hasn't been documented. But again, a previous board voted on this. This is, I think your argument's valid about precedent. I think all those things are, other people, what we would have to do as a board is we would have to vote to rescind that, if it were to not happen at all, we have to vote to rescind that, and I feel like we would owe an explanation to the people on Miley Street that have put a lot of time and effort and thought into this, given a certain expectation. So do we want to table this until the next board meeting?
Can I mention one other thing you brought up?
Yeah.
Well, everybody thinks that this is what will happen with speed bumps. That some people will go, oh darn, and go slower. And then other people will go in only lower. So that will lower the volume on our street probably and up theirs a little bit. That's our guess.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if we do come to a vote, Alice obviously will recuse herself from the vote. That goes without saying.
So I have a suggestion. Because in the airport, I believe, like on that road, that's the straight ahead road, there are two people. There's just two of them. So
Well, now wait a second. You talking going past the terminals?
I'm saying the one on the road that's parallel to the terminal.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
But I'm saying there are speed humps there.
Yeah, but they're huge.
Huge. All I'm saying is, so I'm saying, given that, why can't we do this incrementally? So why can't we start with 3 and see what impact that has?
Well, if we buy them one at a time from Home Depot, we could. If we hire a company to come in with all the spots, we'd have to do everything at once.
Well, the thing we're gonna get, I thought you were saying we were gonna get the materials from Home Depot.
Right.
And then we would have like an engineering committee who were gonna assemble this. Am I correct about that? So why can't we just buy 2 and see what is that?
Then they speed in between the two.
Well, that's fine, but my
if you
point
have
is,
one or two.
my point is, there's only 2 at the Hilo Airport, and that road parallel to the terminal, and that slows down traffic. Let's just try it. We're not gonna lose anything.
The hump slows down and the bump makes them just crawl over really slowly.
So let's just see what happens. We'll see how much money we have to spend as opposed to buying You know, how much did you say initially, 5 or 4?
5.
5, so maybe we don't need 5. Let's start out with 3.
What if we started out, and you know, you guys get to look into a strange mind every once in a while, probably. What if we put up 1 or 2 speed bumps with a sign, and we'll have the sign made, a very professional sign, and it will say, "The people of the street have been impacted by your traffic and your speeding. Please slow down and respect the people of this street." And we see if that has any net effect at all. Maybe some people will go by and flip off that sign. Maybe other people will genuinely pay respect to that sign. But we could implement something like that along with Robert's idea to start out with an incremental purchase. And because we're doing it with purchases from Home Depot, there's nothing to stop us from adding 2 or 3 more if the problem continues to be a bad problem.
They're paid by the individual to ship.
No.
Well, yeah, I think the sign should be right by the bump, like, we're serious.
So I make a motion that we install 2 speed bumps with appropriate signs and board bases.
I'll second that.
Why do we need to waste money on signs?
We're not gonna, we have a hypothesis.
Yeah. Speed bumps have to have a signage to let you know there's a speed bump coming, so that if you are going at 65, you don't rip the transmission out of your car.
Have we?
I mean, not that we would really care that you rip it.
Have we ever addressed the residents in Zone 1 to actually say you using our roads is impacting our neighborhood?
All the time.
No, have we sent letters from the association directly acknowledging to the owners?
Point that the residents of Leilani Section 1 have the same right to use the roads as the residents do. This is a deeded access to those folks' deeds. That we are all the users of these.
That's subject to legal interpretation. Thank you for the opinion on it.
That's what it says.
We're talking about speed.
Anyway, that's not really the subject at hand. The subject at hand,
So, speed bumps is generally designed to slow a car down. If you only put 2, then they got plenty of room in between to speed up.
Right.
So it defeats the purpose.
Well, no, if this is people acting in complete disregard to the community, and they don't give anything, all the speed bumps in the world won't work unless you make it really onerous, which will end up costing a great deal of money. So there has to be some, this has to somehow alter behavior.
No, I like the original idea of 5. Just install the 5, get a volunteer committee to put them in and be done with it.
Yeah. You've already put so much effort.
Okay. Next, what do you got?
I still don't understand. I haven't ever understood in this whole discussion. I think somebody just mentioned it a minute ago. I hate speed bumps. I hate speed bumps. I'm one of the guys that will respect it, slow down, go read over it. Like you said, a lot of people don't. But if I come to a street and I know I go to the next street. If there's 2 streets that have mine, I go to the 3rd street. I'll avoid them. I'll avoid them. So,
Next street down.
are we just going to keep doing every street? Because they're going to move down. It's going to be incremental. Seems like a waste of money to me.
I challenge that because it's quite a big distance from one street to another. And at that point, you are losing. You're going to spend more time going down and around than you would have after cross that street. So it's really important to diminishing the journey.
Okay. But I wouldn't. That's what I would.
All right, you can just something like
1,016 feet.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to suggest with this proposal is let's appeal to people and let's see what the result is, and then we always can change it. That's all I'm trying to suggest. And that's why I think any suggestion was sign. Let's make people aware of the consequence of their behavior.
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
Okay, so it does have a second. Is there any, do either the person who made the motion or made the second, based upon any subsequent conversation, choose to withdraw either that motion or that second? Okay, now, so the motion is made and seconded for the LCA to buy 2 speed bumps and necessary.
He said 3.
3? Okay, sorry, thank you. 3 speed bumps, which is at an approximate cost of $3,600, to be installed on Miley Street by a volunteer committee headed up by Jim Hafner, with great thanks to Jim, in hopes of mitigating the traffic and speeding problems on Miley Street. Do we need a roll call or just a show of hands? Show of hands, aye. Oh, and you're recusing? Okay, and a show of hands, no? Okay, so by a 3-to-1 vote, the motion passes, and so we will institute the immediate purchase of 3 speed bumps. I would also like to make a second motion, and the second motion would be that the purchase of the 3 speed bumps does not necessarily fulfill the original obligation created by the board, and that we acknowledge that the 3 speed bumps is an experiment, and we may need to move forward with more of them. Okay, and vote on that. Okay, so unanimous on that without refusing.
It's always possible that they would like, residents would like them so much that they'd raise the money for the other two.
You never know. Thank you, everybody. Amazing that you guys hung in there. And flabbergasted.
2 hours and 7 minutes.
We do make a promise that there'll always be member comment in every board meeting. Remember, if you want to have a longer period of time, ask for an agenda item to be on it, and it'll be a very important reason for us to not put it on. We would well help putting away the chairs, and the meeting's adjourned.